Hey, how's it going, guys? I know it's been a few days, but let's finally talk about Wonder Festival 2023 Summer. In case you missed part 1 going over one hobby, I'll link it down in the description, but today we're going to be focusing on the exclusive announcements only found in person. And there's a lot, a lot. Like, these events only seem to be getting bigger each year, so we better get started. So as always, I'm going to be using Moepop for most of these announcements. I would appreciate it if you check them out, also linked in the description below, but I figured let's kick things off with Spiritale. I feel like they had a pretty good spread of announcements, and I want to start us off with the Kitagawa Marin Liz figure. Now, I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion or a hot take, but to me, this is one of, if not her best figures yet. I'm always finding little issues with these Marin figures, but this one looks exactly like the anime to me, which is ultimately what I'm looking for. You're also getting a lot of flourishes, right? The items that are scattered across the bed sheets, the fact that you are getting the bed sheets, which places this figure in the hotel room where the scene takes place. Let's be real, her stomach definition looks pretty great to me, and her smile is really enchanting. I know it ain't painted yet, so I'm jumping the gun a little bit here, but this is an insanely good first impression. After that, though, we're getting a new Elena figure where she's acting a little seductive, I suppose. Her clothes are starting to, droop off of her shoulders. She's not wearing a skirt anymore. Similar to the Liz figure, there's, books and her bag scattered across the bed, which I like, just adding a little bit more to the scenery is always appreciated. I don't know this character enough to say if this is, in character or not, but it's certainly pretty different from all the other Elena figures I've seen so far, which does give it value. Following that, though, we had the Shina Mahiru sailor dress version, and for lack of better words, this is adorable as fuck. I really like this design of her. I just kind of wish it was a sundress instead. It's a little hard to tell what the colors of this figure are going to be. I'm not sure if there's concept art out there, but sailor dresses are usually blue in some manner, whether it's the main component or the collar, so I guess expect that, unless they go with yellow instead, which would definitely fit her, but just can't tell. Love the sunflowers around her, though. I love that her hat is just flying off of her head, and I think her twin tail braids look amazing, but this is Spiritale, and they have a very particular way of doing their hair sculpts, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute. Now, we didn't get any updates for Iori from Blue Archive or the Drawing Miku, unfortunately, but we did get an update for the Hatsune Miku Birthday 2022 Polaris version. She was finally painted and is looking almost perfect to me. I really love what they did with the compass, making it look like a relic of the past. The royal rich blue of the boots and the skirt, along with the golden trim and accents, looks stellar to me, and the billowing of the flag and the starry patterns is just excellent stuff, but the hair, man, why do they insist on using this type of plastic for their hair sculpts? Now, the actual hair sculpt, the design of it all, I think is pretty great. It looks pretty fluffy and flowing, but this approach will always look cheap. There's just no shading when using plastic like this. It's all gradients, which is okay in moderation, but for such long hair, I think it clashes way too hard with the rest of the design. The little stars in her hair also feel kind of tacked on at the moment. They don't really feel like they're adding anything to this figure. This is essentially what I was worried about with Mahiru. If her braids look like this, the figure just won't look as pretty as I'm imagining. And just to clarify, this figure isn't bad by any means. I just feel like it's held back when it doesn't need to be. Anyway, next was the Black Rock Shooter Empress teaser visual version. Super sick design, very ambitious stuff. That support in the back is going to be essential, so I hope it doesn't stick out too hard, but this gravity-defying figure is pretty awesome so far. There's some nice weathering on the cannon she's holding onto, and I really like the trace lines on the bike. Just makes it look a bit more futuristic to me. This specific shade of blue for the flames is also really appealing back there. Honestly, the least impressive part of this figure is Empress herself, but she really does bring it all together, so her role's important too. I'll talk about these next two again in the pre-order roundup because they're already up for pre-order, but we're getting two recolors of Toga and Mai. Honestly, I do like what they're going for here, but it's hard to sell me on this Mai specifically when her first figure is already discounted by 8,000 yen. But yeah, we'll talk about them in a couple of weeks. Spiritale is making a Kana figure from Oshino Ko. Now this is going to be the one on my wish list, as she's specifically the B Komachi version, and I trust them way more than Kadokawa. I'm pretty excited to see how this one turns out. Kitagawa Marin's swimsuit version, I feel like this isn't new, but hey, if the Liz version is so good, then maybe this one will be too. If it wasn't obvious last time, we are currently in the Nikkei era of figure collecting, and Spiritale is jumping on that train with figures of Viper and Soda. Both very appealing designs to me. I love fishnets on outfits that aren't just like bunny designs, and Soda reminds me of Kotori from Love Live, except like 5 times as big. Now, I have no idea if these are the poses they're going for, but I honestly wouldn't mind if they were. Companies are so afraid to make anybody else but Bridget from Guilty Gear into a figure that they would rather go back in time to their old design. That's actually mental, but I'll give it up. I never saw this one coming, and considering their Strive Bridget is like my favorite one so far, there's a good chance this Bridget will turn out nicely too. Nejire from My Hero Academia also has a figure in the works, and while this announcement isn't new, this random photo off to the side is, so take a look at this if you're interested in how she's turning out. But that's gonna do it for Spiritale. Aniplex is next, and starting off strong, we have a contender for Best Hitori Figure. Now, it's all going to come down to the execution of the base. Will the signs actually look like neon lights? What exactly are they going to do with the floor, considering it's going to be angled towards you? And just how nice will her guitar look? Who could say for sure, but I like the energy behind this one, and I think it's an exciting announcement for any fan of the series. There's also Maid Hitori. It's one of those like chair figures that Aniplex seems to love lately. We'll see more of those in a little bit. It's non-scale, but at least it's a different costume for her. And then there's Dinosaur Hitori, and I actually really like this one. I'm starting to look more into like goofy little figures, and this certainly fits the bill. It might be too much money with its exclusivity, but we'll see if it joins the collection. Another swimsuit Marin, this time in a more mature type of swimsuit, complete with an inflatable ring floating above a pool of water. And she also has a fancy drink with her. This amazing Kill la Kill scale is back on display. I just figured I would show you guys again in case you missed it last time. I think it was at Anime Expo. I need to see this one painted. It just feels like the dream Kill la Kill figure with a price tag that will likely punch you in the gut. Muichiro is getting a rather cool looking figure that actually shows off his ability, surrounded by a ton of mist. The little bits attached to his sword right here is a really nice touch. It just kind of further sells the fact that he's actually in motion swinging it. Not sure if I love his face so far, but everything else is pretty damn cool. Nier Automata 2B and 9S. If you weren't too keen on the flare figures, which I think most people were, so maybe that's a dumb statement, but if you want something a bit more dynamic, these are shaping up pretty nicely. Based off the anime, I believe, both are coming with a bunch of broken machines under them and their pods. I think these two are pretty exciting looking figures. Might change my mind if I don't think their faces look quite right, but I'm not even sure if you could take off their face mask on these figures, so we'll see eventually. More of these chair figures. We got one for Sanosuke, one for Kenshin. We're also getting one for Hajime in the future. Chisato and Takina are getting proper scale wedding dress figures, which is probably pretty exciting for some people. Takina's looks very modest in comparison. Moon Cancer Archetype Earth is getting a scale figure at some point, but not much to go off of. Kono figs for Mitsuru and Muichiro. Just keep in mind that these are on the smaller side, but are also cheaper to compensate. Lots of buzz mods are in the works. These are essentially posable figures, very much like Figma or Figuarts. We have one for Hitori, we have one for Yoko, no real update on her unfortunately. Muichiro is getting one, as well as Kenshin. These all have prototypes. Hajime is also getting a buzz mod alongside Ryo from City Hunter, and of course we got Chisato and Takina. Though I feel like this is not a new announcement and I might be repeating myself. From Claynell, we're getting another Chisato figure, this time the Hawaii version, which I think has a lot of potential. The colors normally look very appealing to me, and the pose is pretty fun as she's lifting up the dress and dancing, so conceptually, I think this is pretty nice. Albedo is getting a lingerie figure from the company, and it's a little hard for me to judge this one. The details of the lingerie really will make or break a figure like this, at least for me, and her legs look a little thin, which is kind of a bummer. I don't think that looks right, but I only have this one photo to go off of, so I'll wait and see. They also showed off their Kazuma Iroha figure from HoloLive, and it seems like they went one-to-one with the original announcement art, right down to the little clouds in the background. The little Tanuki is pretty damn cute, and for some reason my brain really likes the curved bamboo on the base. I think this one has promise. Claynell also had announcements for Hojo Kaori from Cheat Skill Level Up, as well as Roxy and Sylphie from Mushoku Tensei lingerie versions. Alright then. Wrapping it up was a new Ryza figure, the Summer Adventure version, whatever that means, and a new Chocola and Vanilla figure from Nekopara, the China version. They're still in their maid outfits, though their tops are definitely inspired by Chinese dresses, but a lot of the theming seems to be going on in the background, so I want to believe all of those details will be present in the final figure. Anyway, that's going to do it for Clanel and Aniplex. Shibuya Scramble or eStream is up next, and we're going to start off with the Ranka Lee Amaterasu version and Cheryl Gnome Tsukuyomi versions. Now, these photos aren't the most flattering, but they are both finally painted. And I'm not sure if I just need to look at these figures more, but right now I'm not super in love with the colors. I think it's mostly the cloud bases. Both are really unflattering to the rest of the sculpts and the colors, and I just wish they took a different approach with them, because right now they look like huge clumps of plastic. It's just not a great look in my opinion, but most of the rest of the figure looks great, so I'm gonna hold judgment for now. Apprentice Illusion Magician from Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a bit more straightforward and a bit more up my alley. There's just some good effects on this one. The curvy swirls feel really well thought out and don't really steal focus from her. It just has a really nice solid sculpt and a great paint job all around, and her design is great, so I think this one is just very appealing. eStream's Bridget. Yeah, I don't know about this one. I do like the big yo-yo base, just giving her a large red versus blue contrast, but Bridget herself just looks wrong and kind of cheap too. Her hair looks so shiny and her face looks nothing like the Guilty Gear art style to me. Also, her thighs are huge, especially when you compare them to the last figure. Not a complaint, just an observation, but either way, this is a really easy pass for me. I don't like this figure at all. Their Madoka figure, unfortunately, has not seen any updates since last time, and Homura is just nowhere to be seen, so that kinda sucks. This new Mega Man figure really has my attention though. I love how this one looks. Essentially, it's that one shot from one of the promotional images of the new spin-off show. Normally, I don't think there's these huge streaking effect pieces, but you gotta hold those like stars up somehow. And it does kind of complement her hair flowing, so I think it works. Her expression of like wonderment also just feels wholly unique for not only her, but just also figures in general. I don't really see faces like this on figures too often. If this figure's as colorful as I'm imagining it's going to be, then this is likely going to be joining my wish list. We're also getting this Megumin and Yunyun scale where I guess they're fighting over food. It's not as much of a spectacle, but these types of multi-character figures are definitely underappreciated, and it's another instance of pretty fresh expressions for scales. ZB26, the 1000th paper crane from Girls Frontline. I absolutely love the hair sculpt. Really don't love the way her dress was painted. The crispy burnt edges look amazing, but all the details of the dress and even like a lot of the creases just blend in far too much for my liking. I guess you're mostly going to be staring at her butt and her legs instead, but I'm just not really liking this paint job, unfortunately. We've also got V from Girls Frontline, a huge scale of Toka from Data Live 4 with effect pieces out the wazoo, and Carol from Princess Connect Redive designed in a very similar fashion. These are very busy figures, but that's kind of eStream's specialty, so they're probably in good hands if they get shipped safely, but right now it's best to wait and see how they handle all of these extra parts. Itatori Yuji got his figure from JJK, and I think it's alright, but also one of the less interesting figures from this specific line. Basically, I like all of the other figures made so far, probably because a lot of the sculpt is just dust clouds, which works better when they're surrounded by like other types of terrain as a complement, but not so much as the entire thing. Also, the expression he's got on isn't my favorite, and I personally would have went in a different direction with that. We also got an update on Megumi, and this one feels very inoffensive, though that's not great considering a lot of these eStream figures for Jujutsu Kaisen have been very dynamic and bursting with energy. I can understand Megumi being a bit more reserved, but this really feels more like a Kotobukiya figure with the bird friend added on top. I think his name is Nue. It's not bad, but I think they could have went way harder with it. And then coming in with a few more announcements, we've got a scale figure of Ai with Aqua and Ruby as babies with their glow sticks, a very cute idea. A figure of Kirahoshi Kana from Dolphin Wave. No idea who this is, but she's pretty damn sexy, and a 1/6 scale, so she's gonna be pretty big. a cantable figure of Vladilena, which I think means it's a budget figure, but I don't have enough information to confirm that right now. And then in the same line, we'll be getting Kaguya as well as Ai from Kaguya-sama, Kubo Nagisa from Kubo Won't Let Me Be Invisible, and a whole slew of characters from Sword Art Online. And that's going to wrap us up for eStream. S-Fire is up next. Let's see what they got. First up are two new Hatsune Miku figures. Both do look promising and don't seem to be budget figures like the Panda Miku. Now, if you take a look at the original illustration, you could see that they cut off the tree, which isn't really surprising, but unfortunately it does strip away what would have made for a beautiful background for this figure. The scroll being filled with water and the leaves dropping down and leaving little ripples has a lot of promise, and I think the overall color scheme is fantastic, but it's definitely hard to say how she'll end up. The other Miku is just an illustration, but it's absolutely adorable. This outfit is so cute, but man, I could see them just ditching this background entirely. Maybe if we got like a tree and some acorns or something, that would be enough, but hopefully they figure out a way to incorporate at least a little bit of the design back there. Next up is a bunch of Jujutsu Kaisen figures of all of the main characters. We've got another Yuji figure here, which I like a little bit more. Not completely sold on it, but I just like the composition of him running along on an angle here, and the red twisting effects look pretty cool too. Colors are also just great on this figure, and I feel like I like the expression a little bit more, though it's not perfect either. Next up, we got Gojo, which I just can't make up my mind on. I like his face and pose well enough, but I don't really feel like the effects here add anything of value. It just feels like they were really opposed to making a normal figure of Gojo, and just had to slap on some like erratic, crazy energy effects around him. It's definitely not a bad figure, I just don't personally understand it. Megumi's figure is an instance where I'm not so in love with the stiff pose and expression, but the dog emerging from this gooey black base is just so sick. He looks feral and ready to kill. This is the best part of the figure, bar none. And correct me if I'm wrong, but it also looks like there's a bunch of frogs down here. And I like frogs, so I kinda like this figure as a result. But it's definitely not perfect. And then last up is Nobara, and I don't know what happened, but I just hate her face on this figure. Like, I get what they were going for, but they did not stick the landing with this figure. As great as the bloody base and the huge nail and the demon behind her looks, I don't think any of it matters when the figure just doesn't look like her in the slightest. And this doubly sucks because I'm pretty sure eStream is still skipping out on Nobara, which means that there are less options for good figures of Nobara out there. It's just kind of a shame. Anyway, let's jump over to Chainsaw Man now, and this is where eStream really shines. Diorama figures, scenes ripped straight from the show. Chainsaw Man vs. Samurai Sword. Thought he was Katana Man, but whatever. Now, I'm not sure what it is about Chainsaw Man figures, specifically PVC figures, lacking in blood, but I'll forgive it for now because even just Denji here looks so much better here than on his other S-Fire figure. And I don't even think it's close. You change the pose around and suddenly you have a much better representation of the character. Of course, you can only achieve this with a base and setup that's placing him in the air, but whatever you gotta do, right? I'm not gonna pretend like Samurai Sword is my favorite villain in the series or anything, so I would rather see Denji fighting somebody else, but a memorable moment this still is. And the detailing in both the characters and the base and the copious amounts of dust clouds is looking pretty spot on to me. Just expect this to cost like 60,000 yen minimum. Probably more though. There's also this rather simple Denji and Pochita figure, which is based off a pretty well recognized piece of art, though I gotta question why they changed anything about it. They really should have just copied it to a T. I can understand Pochita being a bit more on model to what we're used to compared to the goofier expression in the artwork, but Denji just does not look fierce at all. He has no fire behind those eyes, and it's actually pretty upsetting. This takes this figure from a potential buy to a skip, if you ask me. Maybe if it was a budget figure like the Panda Miku, I would change my mind, but I still don't think this figure was optimized correctly. S-Fire also had a few more quick announcements. They're working on 4 Kaiju number 8 figures currently, and also revealed they're working on a Rindo Rin figure from High Speed Atoli? I'm not sure, but that wraps up S-Fire. We briefly went over Pony Canyon last time, but I failed to mention this Uzen Kyoka figure from Demon Slave. I'm not really loving this pose, like, at all. It's very awkward when she's frozen in time like this, but I can at least appreciate the bra and panty details though. Those are pretty nice, but that's it. That's all Pony Canyon had. Over at Wing, there's a few Bomber Girl figures actually, and to the surprise of everybody who normally watches me, I'm not really feeling this Bomber Girl figure anymore. I think I just failed to realize how busy this belly dancer costume is. There are just so many metal tassels all over her, and I don't really like looking at this figure anymore as a result. I know for a fact if you remove the veil from her face, she would probably look way better. But even so, I just don't really feel like I need this anymore, so I think I'm gonna pass, and I bet it'll be pretty expensive anyway. We are getting a Pine figure though, so I will consider picking her up if I like the outcome. And Prune is also getting a belly dance figure, but I have my limits as somebody in a relationship, and I do have to consider how far I'm willing to go on the degeneracy. I don't really think this one's for me. Now, a lot of us are getting pretty fatigued on all the Bridget figures at this point, but the Clockworks has just decided to drop the most precious figure of her to date. Is this not the cutest shit you've ever seen? Roger is striking a pose and Bridget's cheering him on. Like, man, my cold heart has just warmed up from this figure's existence. Literally have no idea who this company is, but they're certainly making a strong case for themselves. I think this is one of Bridget's better figures so far. Oh, and they also had this figure of Purple Heart from Neptunia, but this is not an update, and this is also a very blurry photo. So moving on. Solar Rain we did talk about last time, but they did have a few more figures to share, one being the Magic Parade Bunny, who has very long twin tails and very nice hips. Though these colors are the complete opposite of what I was expecting. I really thought she would be a blonde, but that ain't the case at all. There was also the Alvina-chan sister, who I'm guessing is a Catgirl nun, and a posable figure of colors blue, who you might recall getting a scale figure earlier this year. Lastly, though, was the complete lineup of Love Live Superstar girls that they were working on, all fully painted and pretty much ready to go to get pre-ordered, though I don't think they're up yet. Two of the girls have like enormous boas, which is kind of funny to me, but they're pretty fabulous. Very colorful figures, though none of these character designs look as memorable as some of the other characters I know, so I'm not sure how popular these 5 are. Q's Q came with a lot of figures at this event, and they had 2 of my favorite announcements actually, but before we get there, we gotta talk about Bridget again. Everybody loves talking about Bridget. Now, I got some better quality for you right here, but as for the figure, it's alright. I mean, it's kind of hard to impress at this point. It's a very standard figure of Bridget. I know the quality is going to be good, and the pose is very fitting, but her expression is only fine to me at this point. Not terrible, it's not the eStream one or anything, but it's just kind of there for me. It's definitely not bad. I think if this was the only Bridget figure out there, I'd get it, but it's not, so I just don't see the appeal in this one at all, unfortunately. That's what happens when 20 companies make the same character. There was AK Alpha from Girls Frontline, who I can't remember if we saw painted before, but she's definitely a cutie, and you gotta love those big old ears of hers. But oh boy, was I not expecting to 180 on this Flandre and put her back on my wish list. Like, I knew I would like her, but I was really hoping after Altar's Flandre I just wouldn't care. But this came out so phenomenally well. The Toho Vania figures just feel so special. I know it's a bit of a niche line within a niche series, at least as far as figures go, but I rarely see figures that match this kind of stylization and expressiveness. She looks completely deranged, it's absolutely perfect, and the paint job too, the heavy shading and convincing wear of her dress is top notch. I'm thinking this might be a must get, maybe not a must pre-order because I just don't trust this figure not to bin, but this is easily one of my favorite announcements at this event, probably in the top 5. Oh, and then after that is another top 5 announcement for me, Caster Shuten Doji. It's been a long few years since this prototype was shown off, and we're finally looking at her painted. I'm just a Shuten Doji simp, so my words mean nothing here, but this looks as good as I was hoping it would. And it's funny too, because part of me feels like this looks so gaudy and overdone, but at the same time I don't feel that way. It's very conflicting. It's definitely an interesting outfit, and the colors are all over the place on this figure, but it's somehow working for me. There's such a strange everything going on that I like it. The pink club and the zigzaggy sleeves. Her horns have little hearts on them for whatever reason. Her legs also look very long on this figure, though that doesn't really bother me. The Zhangxi figure also has very long legs, so that's kind of normal, all things considered. Oh, and the eyeliner too. She is very pretty. Yeah, this one's probably going to cost like 40,000 yen or something, and I'll complain about it, but then end up buying it anyway, so whatever. Definitely looking forward to this figure. So yeah, those are the two I cared about the most, but there was just so many more figures. Milliam Nava's new figure was finally painted, Elisa Reinford from the Kiseki series showed up, and I keep forgetting that QSQ is making figures for this series. I like this one, but I'm definitely unfamiliar with her. Natsuno Minami and Yakushiji Megumi from 13 Sentinels were both shown off fully painted. I remember specifically not loving the Minami prototype, but she looks way better now, so that's great to see. Also, Megumi looks really pretty. This is an exceptionally nice figure for how simple it is. This is where it starts to get a little blurry for me if we've seen these prototypes before, so I'm just gonna read them off. We've got Melusine from Fate Grand Order, Salvaria Bless from Valkyria Chronicles Duel, Reika from Gantz. I believe this is the first time we're seeing her. She looks pretty great. We have Sophie changing her clothes. That is definitely an update and pretty self-explanatory. Yukina Bunny Girl style, complete with a pool stick. That's a pretty unique accessory. We got Kanade Suzu from Ayakashi Triangle, Suzuhara Misa Maid style, and Kuramoto Erika Maid style from Zettai Junpaku Maho Shoujo. Very powerful Raita designs right there. An original character Marie got her prototype. At the very least, they painted her hair streaks. That's pretty important. I think she's pretty cute though. I like this one. Here we got the Meido Buso AX prototype armament test equipment figure. Those are very big. And what is she serving back there? Something's telling me that's Monster Energy, but I don't know why. Some type of energy drink for some reason. But either way, very well endowed character. I like this one too. And then we got a bunch of announcements. We had the Bad Bunny, we had the Female Ninja and the Oni Ninja figures. We had Akuma Chokyoshi-chan by Tori Domino. Really wish we got to see this one, but unfortunately, gotta wait. Wait, what the fuck? We're getting a new Tsubasa figure from Bakemonogatari. That's pretty surprising, QSQ. Alright, I like that announcement. There is a new Kaguya figure on the way of some kind. Not sure what. A new Accrued figure. She is getting a ton of figures lately. Sei Shonagon and Tomoe Gozen from Fate Grand Order. Not a new announcement, but I really wish we got to see Sei because I love this outfit. Yamakaze Kaini from Konkole, as well as a bunch of Girls Frontline characters. Still waiting to see QSQ's Marin. They're also making a Chisato and Takina training wear set of figures. No update on this one either. And finally, an OC character by the name of Hatsune-chan. And with that, we are finally done with QSQ. So it's a new day. It's about 10 a.m. right now. Feeling pretty tired for some reason, so apologies if I look or sound worse at this point, but we must move on. At the very least, I think the editing is going pretty good. I'm about at the 30-minute mark right now, which I'm pretty happy with. Either way, I nearly forgot to talk about this figure last night, so let's start here. Gecko, one of my new favorite companies, has unveiled their Artorias the Abyss Walker figure, or statue. It's pretty big. Now, since we've been pointing out favorites, this is, without a doubt, my #1 announcement of the event. The sculpt and the paint job are just immaculate here. And you know, we've gotten a few figures of Artorias already, some big or some small, but none with this level of detail, none that perfectly capture Artorias to this degree. And I can gawk at the armor plating and the tattered cloth like all day, but key features like the perfect angle of his hunched over beast-like posture and the abyss sludge covering the base just tells me that they really cared about the character. Also, I'm pretty surprised that they're continuing on with their Elaine figure. This has been in production for like 5 years now or something, but that's definitely an actual prototype in the picture, so there has to be some progress. And then there's Amygdala, or Amygdala, sometimes they say it like that in Bloodborne, but dude, I don't even know about this one. This eldritch abomination getting a figure is dope, but it's also monstrous in size, at least in the game it is, and I can't really visualize what the sculpt is gonna look like unless this is what they're going for here in this image. Exciting, nevertheless, but it's kind of a shame that we didn't get to see any Elden Ring figures. Moving on to Phat Company, they had a new power figure from Chainsaw Man, and honestly, I like this one quite a bit. I can appreciate an arrogant power figure, I always do, and these giant floating letters that just spell out her name is a pretty cool visual, and Meowie just hanging off of the blood spear is pretty funny to me. I already have 2 power figures on pre-order though, so I doubt I'll be picking this one up, but it's very in character and I do appreciate just this design in general. Roxy in the micro bikini, fully painted, she would definitely love to be seen wearing something like this. Horrible seam lines in her hair regardless though. They should really do better than that. That's pretty dreadful. Marvelous Herb Cake from Girls Frontline. This is like dangerously close to a plus 18 figure. I'm gonna censor that because I just want to cover my ass a little bit. But either way, the bed head, the heart eyes, and just the color scheme overall, it's a pretty good combo. Utsumi Eris from Fate Go. This one's got a kind of strange paint job. She looks really flat to me. I like the colors, but not so much the lack of shading, especially on any white part of her outfit. The lance looks excellent though, especially at the helix here, and I do like the character design, but I feel like they need to touch this one up a little bit. Ruby Rose, this one looks miles better than the freeing figure if you ask me, with a face that anyone could love because she looks pretty cute. Now, I like this swirl down here. It's kind of interesting, but I don't know if it's actually supporting the figure in any way because it is connected to the scythe, but it's so thin. That looks like you would break it just by looking at the figure. But I think there's plenty of support points on this figure. There's like one here, there's one on her boot. There might be another on this like huge effect streak right for her other leg, but it's a little hard to tell. Either way, it's a great pose. I think the effects are enough. They're not too special or anything, but they look good enough for this figure, and I like the paint job a lot. DP12 Morning Fable finally got a sculpt. No paint, but alluring nevertheless, pretty much displaying all the goods front and center. Florence and her funny rolling table finally got painted, and she's looking just as unhinged as ever. Her skin by her thighs look incredibly pale. I wonder if that's just a lighting thing though, but it looks a little odd to me. Either way, love her messy hair, and I think the face sculpt is stellar. Clementine swimsuit figure from Overlord. Look at those abs. Phat is not playing around with this figure. The half-eaten popsicle, like dripping down her body too? Yeesh. No update unfortunately. Nice Nature looks pretty good, but I don't know if this one's an update, but you know I love the horse girl, so I gotta give her a shout out. Kazumaki Matsuri and Kanade Suzu from Ayakashi Triangle. If you sculpt an expression like this, 9 times out of 10, I'm probably gonna like it. From Arms Note, we're getting Jirai-chan, and I definitely need more information. What exactly is going on here? Sophia F. Shearing cheerleader version from Bunny Suit Planning. Pretty sexy design, not gonna lie. That's some pretty intense under boob. I like it. 2 more figures of Chisato and Takina, this time in seemingly just oversized long sleeve shirts. That's not that bad actually. Alright. Churingen tidying in the moonlight from Azure Lane. Looks a bit like a busty vampire girl, so count me interested. And the little birds who are at work also have little bat wings. That's adorable. They better come included with the figure. And then finally from Girls Frontline again, we've got the VSK94 Christmas Eve Detective version. And that is a big-ass tail. Also, if you've noticed me like skipping anything in these galleries, I might have seen it before in the past and talked about it, or it might be a little too much to talk about on YouTube. But either way, that's gonna wrap us up for Phat Company. There are so many announcements on this Kadokawa page, so we better get started. First up is the wedding figure for Tachibana Kanade. Honestly, very standard stuff. Not bad, but very predictable, expected as far as a wedding dress figure goes. Even the bouquet, nothing too special about it, but for a certain someone out there, this is like the best figure ever for them. That's just kind of how wedding figures work. This Shvi figure is absolute insanity. I am very surprised that Kadokawa is making something like this, and you know it's going to cost an absurd amount of money, but the ambition is certainly there. That is a ton of wires running into her body, and they all look pretty convincing. There's like no lack of realism on these wires and just the sculpts as a whole. Pretty impressive stuff. If you weren't aware, this is the Kana figure from Oshinoko that Kadokawa is working on. We got this announcement on the final episode's like airing date, so this is not a new thing. But this paint job for Ruby is, and I think she looks pretty good, very in line with the eye figure that has already gone up for pre-order. And it's probably not going to be too expensive either, so solid stuff. Hatsune Miku Maneki Miku version. This is essentially a Lucky Cat's Miku. I love the fact that she just comes with a golden leek stuffed into her briefcase. That's just funny to me for some reason. And the colors are pretty nice too. It doesn't look too like heavily shaded in any way, but the color palette is definitely appealing. Tokisaki Kurumi Jote version. This is a humongous armchair for her, but also a great pose on top of that. Nice colors on this figure too. But sometimes these Kurumi figures just have really flat looking faces to me, And unfortunately, this is one of those times. I don't think the figure's terrible or anything, but I wish there was more like definition to her face, and maybe her hair too. Alright, let's see, we got a 1/7 scale figure of Roselia. Not exactly sure who this character is, but the pose and the base do lead to some dynamism, so pretty cool. We got some Spy Classroom figures, one for Monica, as well as one for Annette. Ilya Summer One Piece version, this sorta looks like a prize figure to me. I'm not super impressed by this one. Could just be the lighting though. And somebody seemed to have stolen the ribbon on one of her shoes. That's unfortunate. Yunyun Gothic Lolita version, just a nice outfit swap to match with the Megumin figure. Really not a bad design at all, pretty cute. Himeji Shirayuki from Liar Liar, the Jim Carrey movie clearly. This is a busty cat girl maid. Her design is nice, but the trolley is really depressing to look at. That don't look great at all. Save, of course, for the kitty teapot. That's actually adorable. Beta from Eminence in Shadow, honestly one of the nicer figures I've seen from Katakawa, and the photo isn't even a great one. Just a big fan of the colors on her. The paint looks great here. The base is fairly involved with like the stacking of all these rock slabs on top of each other, and the effects don't seem to look terrible, which is always a plus. 2-scale figures from Bungo Stray Dogs, both fully painted. I believe these are the younger versions of the characters, Dazai Osamu and Nakahara Chuya. And now it's time for a million announcements back to back. We have a new Oshinoko figure of Ai, Aqua, and Ruby together. Both of them as like 2 or 3 year olds. I don't remember how old they're supposed to be here. There was a bunch of Konosuba figures. This is the Aqua 10th anniversary version. And I find it really funny when you compare it to the other 10th anniversary figures, because none of them look like Aqua. They look a little bit more formal or cute, right? Especially this Yunyun figure. I like that one a lot. And this would be something I might buy in the future depending on how it turns out. But this just looks like a belly dancer figure to me. She's wearing stirrup leggings. I would really struggle to use the word dress when talking about this figure if they didn't straight up say dress. Doesn't matter though, it's a great design, and if they do commit to all the water effects, it might be a beautiful figure. Anyway, getting back on track, we got the Okita Soji altar figure in the works. There is an Anastasia and V in the works. Another Megumi figure, this time the beach cosplay figure, which I feel like would look great next to my May Guilty Gear figure, which I never got a chance to unbox on the channel, but I will do it one day, I promise. There's also, of course, a Yunyun beach cosplay figure. Rias Gremory nurse uniform version from High School DxD, a Rias Gremory 15th anniversary version from High School DxD, as well as one for Himejima Akino. Tokisaki Kurumi Nekomimi version, Eris Negligee version, we got a Naobedo 10th anniversary figure, a Sakurajima Mai Hanfu figure, there is a figure of Asuna on the way, very interesting outfit for her. Raftalia Daki Makura version, that's actually different. Alright, that's interesting. We have the Super Sonico Megumi version, which is just never gonna get done. We keep seeing this exact same image and no update. And then there is a figure for Ronin, which is also not a new update. You know, I just realized something. This company does not take many risks when it comes to like the characters that they make. They make the same characters over and over again. Great for the fans of those specific characters, but it wouldn't hurt to take a few risks, guys. Come on. Jumping over to Hobby Max Japan, we have the Rei and Asuka Radio Eva Part 3 figures. And I'm not even sure if Part 2 is done yet, but I guess they gotta get these ready, so it's fine. I dig this outfit for Rei way more than her Part 2 figure, so as long as I like the colors, this'll be my favorite one so far for her. Asuka's I don't think can beat Part 2, that figure is just like far too perfect, but the pose and expression combo is excellent here. It's just a bit of a shame you might not get to enjoy her outfit as much this way because how she's like crouched down so low to the ground. There's a very similar line of figures coming from Girls Frontline too. 5 figures this time, in fact. I'm gonna pull up a better image right here just so you guys can take it in a little bit better. I'm not exactly sure how these are supposed to be painted, their color schemes and whatnot, but they do have nice designs. If I had to pick one, I'm going with the Sleepy Girl, playing her Vita. I think that's a Vita or a PSP. It doesn't look like a Switch to me. And she's got the Crocs on. She looks so sleepy, like holy shit. I don't think she wants to be here, but I respect her for showing up to the party. Either way, these have a lot of potential because the Eva figures look great so far. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how these turn out as well. Ninghai and Pinghai from Azure Lane. This is literally the exact same figure as that one Ram and Rem figure. This time, though, we get some ashtrays and some birds, and the one in the front is looking a little tubby. And that's pretty sweet if you ask me. Pretty self-explanatory otherwise, though. Doesn't look bad, but yeah. Branya Zaychik Silverwing from Honkai Impact 3rd. You know, this is a pretty sweet setup, but am I the only one who thinks that this attack she's getting ready to perform looks like it belongs to a different figure? Something about this figure just feels like it had a bit of a misstep, and I can't exactly put my finger on it. Also, she is a dangerous leaner with that pose, so I'm not really sure if I'm gonna like the outcome of this figure because I don't like it right now, and there's definitely gonna be more supports coming in the future. So I feel like this one might be a bit of a mess, but that's a shame, so I hope that's not the case. There's even more streetwear figures, this time for Hatsune Miku and her friends. I think we've all been clamoring for more figures like this, at least I have, and Hobby Max has just announced like 9 more all of a sudden, so that's awesome to see. I'm not exactly sure if I like these outfits enough to pick up any of these figures, but I'm definitely happy to see them happening regardless. If we're talking fashion Miku though, I think this new Miku and Yoneyama Mai crossover figure by Stronger is just killer. The fresh sneakers and the crochet top combo, yeah, this one's great. Also, she's specifically called the cute version, and the art has 2 Mikus in it, so we may be getting a second figure in this line eventually. I love it. This is great. Mimiyoi keeps bringing the same unfinished prototypes to these events, but they did finally paint the Izumi Imoto Amy figure. I've been learning my way around Blue Archive a little bit just to get familiar with the characters, but Zipper Top here is not one of my favorites. She certainly has a very unique design though. I'm not sure why she just can't wear her clothes correctly and why she's all bandaged up. I guess she is a very clumsy character by nature, and I do like the colors of this figure, but it just doesn't stand out enough for me to be like too excited about this one, but that's fine. Not all figures are for everybody after all. Wings Inc. also had a couple of figures at this event. The Royal Fortune Treats from the Deep figure from Azure Lane. There was this witch girl Lumina. Her broomstick looks like it has a massive thruster on it, which is kind of cool. She's wearing hot pants, and this creature down here is disgusting. I don't know what it's supposed to be, but I don't like it. This is going to be a very popular figure. This is Suyu, and I'm saying that because this is the same artist who was behind the Hatsuaki figure that a ton of people bought and a ton of people loved. So it only seems natural that this one will catch the eyes of many people out there. And then there was also the Jean Bart First Snow Upon the Cutlass Edge figure, which is not painted here, but it is painted elsewhere, so they just didn't feel like bringing it to the event, which is fine. Looks like a pain in the ass to lug around, so I totally understand. The figure is absolutely beautiful though, and also kind of badass at the same time, mostly because of the way she's like wearing her kimono, and she's like right in front of 2 gigantic katanas. It just feels like a battle is just waiting to happen with this one. It's very cool, but also very like elegant at the same time. Rounding us out for Wings Inc., we had the Marco Polo, the Queen of Hearts figure announced, one for Albion Silver Moon Fairy Princess, and another for Musashi, all from Azure Lane. 2 announcements from Kaitendo, one for Ikuma Murasaki from Phantom Trigger. That doesn't look great as far as water goes, but it's a prototype. You can't really judge something like that just yet. And then there was one for a Rias Gremory lingerie figure, which seems about right. Neon Max Japan had a couple of figures at this event, but by far the coolest one was the Kosaka Wakamo figure from Blue Archive. This is just a brilliant character design if you ask me. I think she looks fucking awesome. Now, I do wish her one legging here, the fishnets were actual fishnets, actual material, but considering they have floral patterns in them and they're ripped in very specific areas, that would be pretty like hard to do consistently, so I'm not gonna really like worry about that. I just wish there was like an opportunity to see what that would look like, but it's fine. You know, you get a lot of these like belts around her legs though, giving you that nice skin indentation. The kimono top looks great. The skirt makes it a little sexy. The gun that she's holding on to in a pretty badass way. The fox mask, like all of this is just awesome to look at. And I can't wait to see the price tag on this one, because it could be a get, you know? Might be a pre-order, not exactly sure yet. Kinda love it so far. The other figures from the company were all Azur Lane related, such as the St. Louis Spirits in the Snow version, making this a bit of a winter-themed figure, but it's still that St. Louis you know, and likely love. I mean, that character design is pretty hard to resist. We're also getting a Glorious Pungent Plume figure. Not a name I love, but the character design is also pretty attractive. And then there is one for Dido Anxious Bisky Doll. And I am genuinely surprised that they incorporated those weird floating hands on this figure, making this look extremely unique and a little bit eerie at the same time. But this is a pretty standout Azur Lane sculpt so far, so I hope they deliver when it comes to the paint. Not going to spend too much time here, but Unique Art brought a couple of figures to the event, like 5 busty girls from the Master and Servant series. I do like the art cards that are placed in front of these figures. This one is from Soft Love Bonnie, whatever that is, but then we go back to Master and Servant. Yeah, I don't know what the series is, but in case you like any of these designs, then maybe you got something coming your way. Yeah, I'm starting to feel like I'm never going to finish this video unless I speed things up. So here we have Golden Head, Eve Usamimi lingerie version. Not super revealing as far as lingerie goes. This is a translucent top. She does have fishnets on. I can't tell if they're like actual fishnets or just like painted on, but either way, add to the design of it. She's got like little bat wings, which is cute. The twirly twin tails are really nicely sculpted. And the bunny ears, I could take it or leave it. Those look a little tacked on, but cute for the most part. Golden Head also had the Rune Muse Armament version. This is like a singer or an idol girl or a pop star. Not exactly sure which, but she surely fits one of those categories. Looks pretty good though. Colors are pretty dark for a figure like this, and she's very spherical. Those are very round boobs. And then there was the Suzuri Amagasa Shy Girls in Love figure, where she's asking you to put some suntan lotion on her. And then coming soon to Golden Head is a scale figure of Reina. This is an OC character by Fumi. From Palette, we're getting seemingly 3 figures of Kinako. Now, we do have a couple of figures of her already. I just talked about one where she's in her pajamas, the tiger pajamas, right? It's just a cute cat girl, but it seems like a pretty popular line at this point. I'm not sure if Palette is the one making these figures. Honestly, I thought it was Golden Head, but I would need to double check that. Either way, 3 more designs coming your way. Next up is Alice Glint with another Azur Lane figure. This is the Joan of Arc Saintless of the Sea version, and just out of curiosity's sake, I felt like looking this one up, and the original art is really pretty, so I hope the figure looks somewhat close to this, right? I have to imagine these giant blue streaks are what's making up the bottom of the base, and I really hope they commit to the little bits of gold on the tassels here, on the crossover here. And it seems like she's gonna have like little snowflake-like patterns on her chest and on her stomach, which you just cannot see at all on the sculpt so far, but that's because it's probably gonna be a decal, so don't really worry about that. But as long as they get the colors down right, they do the translucency of the outfit correctly, this could be really pretty. Alice Glint is also making a figure for Shiki Natsume from Cafe Stella and the Reaper Butterfly. She now has a prototype. But then they also announced 2 figures for Ayachi Nene. One as a 1/7 scale, and one as a 1 3/5 scale. So she's gonna get something rather big, and I think this like outfit where it's just belts covering her up means that it's gonna be pretty lewd. Moving on to Broccoli, we had this one figure of Momo from To Love Rude Darkness, and I think it was painted pretty well, especially the inside of the cloak. Her face looks great, her hair looks nice. People aren't really happy about this one. They did censor it because she wasn't normally wearing underwear, and I don't know why they wanted to make this figure in the first place, because they knew they couldn't get away with doing that. So like, this figure's existence is just strange to me. I don't think it's bad if you don't have that information or if you just don't care, but I totally understand if you are bugged by that. They made a recolor of May, and I actually really like this color palette, but not enough to buy this figure again. I'm not going to do that, but I do think it looks great on her, but not $200 and something great if you already own the original. And then getting back to Cafe Stella, actually, is a new figure of Akizuki Kana. A little bit more involved, a little bit more interesting. I like the fact that she has a gigantic scythe, a butterfly in her hand. Don't know who this is, but definitely a more like exciting looking figure, at least for me. And then an announcement for Hoshikawa Kaguya and Tanikaze Amane from Tenchi Sozo Reboots. Alright, let's do Furyu next. I'm only going to do the F next section, I just cannot handle all the prize figures right now. But we're getting one of those kimono figures for Misaka Mikoto. One of those $1,000 to $1,500 figures. And I will never know if these are worth it or not. Certainly, I don't feel so because I'm not willing to spend that kind of money. But they gotta be pretty in some way. I think the electricity is kinda tacked on though. I really don't think this figure needs that. In fact, I think it makes the figure look a little bit ugly, but it might look better in more optimal lighting. We're getting a new Reimu from F next. This is a very flowery figure. Flowers in the patterns of the outfit, in her hands, the base is a flower. It's a really cute version of her for sure, but not enough to dethrone my favorite figures of her or the new Solar Rain figure that we saw at One Hobby. That figure is way more interesting than this one, but she's still very pretty. Emma from Nikkei is getting a figure. This looks okay, very top-heavy character design. Sculpt's not super interesting, but will probably look a little bit better to me when she goes up for pre-order. This is Guillotine from Nikkei. She looks kind of badass. Gun's huge, that's pretty cool. Punishing Gray Raven number 21 Summer Coating version. This is a swimsuit figure where she's actually swimming, and there's like coral and bubbles and a little robot friend on top of that. But that's pretty rare, you know? Just a figure swimming somehow is rare. Sculpt looks good so far. Kind of a cool announcement from FNX. Scale figure for Uzen Kyoka from Demon Slave. This is that one character who was like in her bra that I didn't like the pose of, but she looks way better here. The giant demon under her is also pretty sick. I think the chain doesn't look that great, but the composition is definitely there. Entoma from Overlord. Somebody's got to tell me the deal with this girl because I don't watch Overlord, or I've only seen a couple of episodes of it. Kind of love this character design though. She looks like a spider girl or some kind of bug. Her hair is just like giant creepy hands, but man, this is probably going to cost way too much, so I won't have to think about it. But if this company had any decency, they would make it affordable so I could buy it. So I wouldn't feel guilty just like impulse buying these kind of things. But she's a cutie. I like her a lot. Also, just to reiterate, I have weird taste. Scale figure for Ito Life. I don't have enough information on this one. Very busty. Looks a little bit like a demon girl. She's got the horns. I like her thick eyebrows. And I guess she's working at some kind of cafe. And then last up for FNX, we had a scale figure of Aikawa Megami from Heaven Burns Red. I think this one is already up for pre-order actually. And it looks alright, but I'll save my opinions for when I'm doing a pre-order roundup. Alright, let's do Design Coco next. Now this is not a new announcement, it's already up for pre-order. I've absolutely talked about it in the past, but it looks fantastic, except the price tag is pretty damn hefty. This, on the other hand, is a new update for me. This is the Azur Lane Emil Burton 1/4 scale. I don't think I picked that up last time when it was just an announcement. It might not have said that, but this is a pretty big figure. I also don't think I realized that these like missiles were supposed to be inflatables, which makes it way cuter, and I like that quite a bit. Now I think she looks very pretty. Her hair sculpt looks great. I love the colors of this figure. The tassels, like the ribbon tassels, look fantastic as well, just kind of like draping down the figure. The base is like a little expected as far as beach figures go. You got the sand, you got the waves. I like that she's written her name in the sand though. I think that's a nice touch. And it definitely fits the figure, and there's certainly enough going on, and it's a 1/4 scale, so I don't feel like you could be too picky. They could have definitely been way lazier with this. I think this looks fantastic, honestly. So this is another figure that is already up for pre-order. This is Mikazuki Shizuka from Zom 100, which is currently airing right now. I've yet to see it, but this figure costs around like 17 to 18,000 yen. It wasn't really too expensive at all. And essentially, it's a sweaty girl figure. And like, I think they did a really good job with it. Makes me kind of want to watch the show so that I can justify buying this. Now, normally, I mean, I'm not that degenerate. Maybe I am, but like, I don't normally give a crap about stuff like this, but they just did such a good job. I don't think I've ever seen a figure like this that looks this convincing, that the figure is like actually sweaty. It's like a Bravo Vince situation. Like, damn, they knew what they were doing over at Design Coco. They crafted something kind of special here, and I gotta stop talking about this because I'm probably getting kind of weird right now. But let's give them a round of applause. Good job, Design Coco. Alright, enough embarrassing myself. Let's talk about something rad. This is the Hatsune Miku Japan Tour 2023 Thunderbolt figure. And this looks intense. I think that's the best way I could describe this one. Her hair is so erratic and wavy. It's all over the damn figure, but it looks awesome. And I love what they did with the base. It kind of has like a optical illusion in a sense. It looks like it has a lot of depth to it, but I don't think that's actually the case. I think it's pretty flat, but it looks that way, right? Now, I remember looking at the original art for the announcement, and I thought it was cool, but I felt like I wouldn't love it. Now, it's up in the air if the paint job, the colors of this figure will win me over, but I remember really liking the art style. It kind of reminded me of Gitaru Man, however you say it. So this could be one that I eventually will want, but it's definitely hard to say right now. It looks like there's a bunch of thunderbolts all around her, or like electricity running through the figure. I love her huge socks. That was definitely like not something I picked up on the original announcement. And just overall, it's so stylish and unique. This is definitely one to keep your eyes out on. I hope they don't charge too much, but it's Design Coco. They usually do, and there's clearly a lot of plastic on this figure. And then we had an old classic, the Senbon Sakura Miku. It just feels like looking at an old friend. I love this song, the design of this Miku. I feel like a lot of people who do like Miku feel the exact same way. So I like that they're making this because there's really no reason to. It's not relevant right now. It's a pretty old song at this point. But it looks great so far. The only thing I would want is maybe a little bit more like background bass elements. I feel like it's a little bare, especially after looking at that Thunderbolt Miku, but maybe I won't care when it gets painted. We'll see. So I guess leave it to Design Coco to do something rather unique for Rem. This is the Aqua Dress version, and it's kind of gorgeous. The entire thing is so simple. Just make a dress out of water, but it looks so good. I'm very surprised at how well they pulled this one off. And you know, it doesn't have to be a Rem figure technically. It doesn't really have anything to do with Rem, right? But because she has light blue hair and light blue eyes, it also just feels like it's the perfect match at the same time. I'm kind of impressed at this figure. I hope it doesn't cost that much. I'm not gonna buy it. Maybe Derek will buy it, and then we'll all get to see it in like super 4K quality and whatnot. But I think this is amazing, honestly. And then my good faith kind of just goes out the window. Why are they doing Rem in a spacesuit? I mean, I guess no one has gone that far before, so that's different. But nowhere near as exciting, nowhere near as cool, nowhere near as pretty either. Again, you need the Rem specialist to pick this one up. But can't say I'm super thrilled about this announcement. And then, of course, a couple more announcements. We've got the Hatsune Miku Magical Mirai 2023 design. I don't think I've ever seen a Miku look like this, so definitely want to see how this one turns out. We have the VR toy box figure from Miko Expo 2023. Very cutesy, very doll-like. She has a wind-up key on her back, which is very different. And I love her bun hair, so this could be a good one. There are two figures for 2B, but I did not realize they're a 1/1 scale and a 1/1 scale bust. So you might not be able to buy these. I'm not exactly sure. And then there are two figures for Anne Hallford and Shawl from Sugar Apple Fairy Tale. And there you go for Design Coco. So this page is mostly Prisma Wing, but they did have one Prime 1 Studio figure or statue to go over. They're the same company, but different divisions and whatnot. But either way, Guts and Griffith, these are the peak in terms of figures and statues, in my opinion. I don't think I've ever seen nicer scales, ever. Genuinely, I am so impressed and in awe when I look at these two that I don't even really have words to describe it. I mean, they took a piece of art, a beautiful piece of art, and they somehow brought them to life, and there's no awkwardness, there's no loss in the value of the original illustration. They've somehow just captured the essence so wonderfully, and I'm just man, I really want these in my collection. Now, I have to imagine each of these are going to cost $1,000. It could be more, but they're also 1/6 scale. They're not 1/3, 1/4 scale. They're not that big. So I'm hoping they cap off at 1,000, which is still a lot of money. But come on. Come on. You seeing this? I don't even know how this works. It doesn't look like it should work. but it does. But yeah, I'll try and mention these again when they do go up for pre-order, like whenever that happens. So let's move on to Prisma Wing. Now these photos aren't the best. I do have a couple of better photos for you. We have Nadeshko and Rin just kind of together with the moped. It's a cute setup for sure. I also like the really grassy base they went with, but there's something about Prisma Wing figures that don't look right. I don't know, I feel like they always mess up the faces on some of these figures. I feel like there's always something a little off with them, and I feel like that's more apparent as they keep releasing new scales, right? Like this Shikimori figure, it's fine. She's just kind of like leaning against a bench. Depending on the price will determine if this is worth buying or not, but I'm not really in love with it. I'm not really in love with the way they did her hair. It looks a little bit flat to me. There is this Emiliko and Kate figure from Shadow's House, which is absolutely one of their best figures to date. It's just one of those like impossible scales. I don't even want to think about how this is like logistically working, how they constructed this to make sure that Kate doesn't fall down. I just don't understand how this could possibly work a long time. But I am willing to say that I don't see any other company being as ambitious as Prisma Wing. This is likely the best figure this series will get. And I mean, I think some other series would die to get a figure like this. So that's great for Shadow's House. Don't you just love the perspective, right? Like, look at the floor that Kate's running on. It's actually, like, warping a little bit, and you'll lose that illusion if you look at it from another angle, but from the front view, absolutely incredible. The picture frame over here is warping a little bit. Obviously, there's a lot of, like, crap just, like, flying all over the place because, I mean, it has to be in the scenario. I think that's what was going on in the ending or the opening. I don't remember which one this scene takes place in, but I do love that song. I just can't remember when it plays. Yeah, I think I said enough about this one. Definitely curious to see how much she'll cost. My guess is like 55,000. I don't know. There's no way this is cheap, right? This has to be like really expensive. I couldn't find a better photo of this one, a scale figure of Flower from Neko. A little hard for me to see the details on this one, but maybe you can discern something by looking at this image. We had a couple of announcements, one for Ai from Oshino Ko. I know this is just a render, but I don't really see Ai when I look at this figure, and I don't love the balloon stars. I wish they were just like more traditional stars. I feel like that would fit the figure better. Just zooming in a little bit so I don't have to keep clicking on these images, we have a Karuizawa K figure from Classroom of the Elite. There is a new Megaman figure in the works. Again, don't really like her face, but the base is cool, so it's got something going for it. I think there are definitely way better figures for her, though. It's kind of weird to paint the figure and then just take a photo of it and bring it to the event, but there's Destiny if you were interested in her. Reverse Studio had this Mushroom Girl. There's a couple of these on the market right now, and I don't know how good they turn out, but I love the concepts. I think all of the designs are pretty great so far. I feel like I should buy this for my mom. I think she would like it. She actually bought her own figure the other month. I think it was Chitaka, the Deer King from Mythos. It's a great looking figure. I was very caught off guard when that happened, though. They're also making Persicaria from Girls Frontline, and Zero Creative is making some kind of maid. And you can really tell the difference between these two. It's called Milk Time. Okay, nice, nice. A couple of companies on this page, starting with Rebos. We have the Honolulu Manju Mischief version. I believe this is an actual Christmas figure. You got the deer costume just like on the floor here, and she's wrapped up, I guess, in like ribbons and stuff. I'm not exactly sure. This is her butt. She is having a little bit of a problem here. And I kind of like the fact that she comes with realistic pantyhose. You don't really see that too often on scales of this size. Honestly, of even like pantyhose. It's normally fishnet stockings, so curious to see how this one turns out. A Lulu from Dragon Maid. This just doesn't really look like her to me. I'm way too used to the anime's art style, but even the manga, I feel like doesn't look quite like this. I think the paint job looks great. The sculpt is good too, but it's just the face, man. I feel like it ruins the figure completely for me. Let's see what else they got. There is the Nemesis Venus version from Tower of Fantasy. I really don't like this cat, but she looks pretty cool. I like the metallic paint job of her suit. There is the Lion Magnus from Tales of Destiny. I love seeing the representation for the Tales series, especially from the older games. Kotobukiya, please re-release Colette. I'm tired of waiting. I don't want to pay aftermarket prices. Special summer training with Mizuno Senpai. There is not enough to go off of with this sculpt, but there you go. PA-15 Dance in the IC from Girls Frontline, a ballerina figure complete with a spiraling ribbon. That's a nice touch. There is a pajama figure for Siobe from Arc Knights, pretty cute design. Destiny Child had a figure for Clotho, that can't be her name. And then there is a Nadeshiko figure coming, and maybe a Rin. I can't read her name, unfortunately, but someone else is coming. I'm really fumbling the bag here. Lemoe figure had a couple of announcements. There is the Tora Ruri figure. I remember not really liking this one last time we saw her just because of this specific, like, two-tone color palette. Little too busy for me. Honestly, I don't think the face turned out as good as the illustration did either, but probably an acquired taste, just not for me. Two characters in this next set, we got Rihanna and Ruana. I feel like you definitely could have came up with a better name than that, but you know what? Pretty damn attractive as far as like anime characters go. I like these two a lot. I love what they're wearing. I do want to see more. Curious on their price tags. Hobby Sakura had the Super Bunny figure, which is a very bright pink figure. Now, the suit itself is a little confusing because it's really tight for the most part, except for the sleeves, which are baggy. I don't exactly know what's going on with this figure. There's a lot of text running through it. Big Bunny, Super Bunny. This says something about, like, Hawaii. It would make more sense if it said Kawaii, but that really looks like an H to me. So I don't know what it says. Lily by D-Smile, just a wholesome looking figure in my opinion, but I love the fact that they're actually sculpting the bike on this one, so I think there's like pretty high potential here. There's also the Kuro figure, which is unpainted unfortunately, as well as the Neva Ostro figure, which is painted, but I don't have a strong opinion on it. I think that's it for this page. Oh, I lied, actually. There's also the Cheerleader Misaki figure and the Ying Mo figure. Just announcements, nothing to show. Now we move on. Wonderful Works is a great company, but unfortunately they didn't bring too much to this event. We did see the Racing Miku again, but this is old. It's still cute, but there hasn't really been a change in the prototype. The one true update is the DP12 figure from Girls Frontline. And I figured I would look this one up just to understand the color palette that she's supposed to have. And it definitely paints a better picture. I could not tell that her dress was supposed to be transparent. Certainly very thin, but not necessarily see-through. So I definitely have a better appreciation for this now. I mean, there's not too much else to say. The colors on this figure are going to be very pleasant. The body will be bodacious. I think it's a pretty good sculpt for Wonderful Works. They certainly like sculpting bodies like this. Consider they're working on this one, and they're just never, ever updating it for some reason. I don't know why. I think I've seen this figure for a year now, and I'm kind of tired of waiting. Maybe next time. As far as the new announcements go, we did get one OC character, Melterna Girl, Metako, and this is like a asymmetry kind of character design. The hair is two-tone, the eyes are heterochromia, right? The jacket is denim and then like see-through. I don't really get how that works, but okay. And then she's wearing really tiny shorts and a really tiny shirt. And also some nice sneakers with her name just kind of like slapped on top. And then they also had two Ryza figures, which isn't surprising. This company loves Ryza, though I don't really know what to think of these. One is the anime version, and one is just saying Ryza, though it's using like the anime art style, I'm pretty sure. So two new Ryzas on the way. Who the hell knows what they're gonna look like, but there's always more Ryza on the way, so get excited, maybe? Over at Elegant, there was like mostly petite character designs. I guess we had the Shimakaze Summer Island version, which looks fantastic, honestly, for a beach figure. These giant sand sculptures look great. One's a cat, one's something. It might be a rabbit with the ears down, though I can't exactly say for sure. She looks really cute. The beach balls have like a really nice glossy finish to them. The baskets full of sand are adorable. There's like nothing wrong with like any part of this figure. They did a great job with this one. Then there is also this figure from Blue Archive, the Kasumizawa Miyu figure. And I just feel bad for her. I think I found a better image of her, maybe. It's like a little bit better in terms of like saturation, I guess, though it doesn't show the full picture, but I guess you don't really need to see the fact that one of her shoes is off. Yeah, it's just a mess. She's like hiding in a trash can. She's been stepped on, the poor thing. There's like a ferret coming out of there. There's some birds. It's just like all over the place. I don't know if I would buy something like this. I'm not super familiar with this character yet, But it's cute. It's cute in a sad way, you know? Like, I feel bad, so I want to support her, but not sure yet. Also from Blue Archive, we got this figure, the Shirasu Azusa swimsuit version, and I think I recall liking this one, at least from the sculpt last time. And it's a busy figure for sure. There is a lot going on, and I'm not exactly sure if we're going to be getting that, like, acrylic background. We might, but there's certainly, like, a bigger background in this photo shoot, so I'm not exactly sure, right? But she's definitely very cute, and this is a very colorful figure. I do like that there's a ton of suitcases with this figure and a bag full of, like, little knickknacks and stuff like that, drinks and books and stuff. I mean, personally, I'm always gonna like more stuff on a swimsuit figure compared to less stuff, the basic swimsuit figures. So I'm a little conflicted, but when I say that, I mean like a really tiny amount. Overall, this is still a very nice swimsuit figure. And before we leave this page, one more announcement. We had a figure of Jade from Azur Lane. It's a very tiny skirt. Let's jump to the next page. Everybody loves Apex toys, so let's do them next. Now, first up is a Remelia figure, which is pretty surprising to me. I don't think I've seen this company tackle this series yet. And I gotta say, this looks incredible, but I'm not a big fan of this figure. Don't let me stop you, because I genuinely think this is a phenomenal Remelia figure, but I'm just not the biggest fan of this art style. I think this figure looks a little creepy. I don't like the blood pouch. I don't like her red gloves, right? Not the biggest fan of the dress. But this is all a big personal take here. I don't think there is anything objectively wrong with this. Apex prices are great, and this looks like leagues above a lot of the figures I've seen today in terms of detail and the paint, right? Like, it just looks so dark and creepy, like purposely so. I actually think this was a garage kit, so it's nice that they're bringing it into the public eye, letting other people get this figure since it will be a standard release most likely. So don't let me stop you. I think this is incredible. It's definitely in their like upper echelon of figures that they've put out. So yeah, pretty impressive. I am very surprised at how little Grand Blue Fantasy figures there are. I mean, there are some, right? Like, there's enough, but that series is still going strong, right? Like, I don't understand why they wouldn't keep producing them. But here's a new one, the Vera Oathsworn Evening Gown version. I think the dress is lovely. I think she is gorgeous when it comes to her face, but the staircase isn't that impressive looking in my opinion. If the rug here, the velvety rug, wasn't like on the stairs, I feel like it wouldn't look that great as far as a base. There might be like a little bit of a marble texture down here, but it's not coming through in the rest of the stairs, like the railing over here. Maybe it looks better in person though. Azur Lane's Amagi-chan, this is a fox girl, I'm gonna guess. I don't know why she looks so soulless when it comes to her eyes. I don't really like that. I'm sure Apex didn't mess it up. I'm sure it's just the character design, right? But a little strange. Not my thing. We also had this Xiaomi, if I said that right, Chinese dress black version, as well as a white version. So pick your favorite flavor. They're pretty much the same figure. I think even the backgrounds are the same. They look the same. Either way, a pretty sexy sculpt, and you don't really get like glasses and a face mask too often, especially these kind of glasses, so it's got that going for it too. What else do we got on this page? There is the Prinz, the Gate Dragon's Advent from Azur Lane. From Girls Frontline is the M4A1, a Girls Hot Air Balloon Adventure. From Honkai Impact 3rd, we have Durandal, looking like a wedding dress figure. I think it's going to be pretty hard to compete with that New Jersey figure, but I wish them the best of luck. This one's pretty intense. From Honkai Impact 3rd, a new figure for Alicia. This, I don't know exactly what's going on with this figure. It kind of also looks a little bit like a wedding figure, but not exactly. I can't really make heads or tails of what this outfit is supposed to be. Maybe I should look up an image of this. Yeah, I don't know if I would call this a wedding dress figure, but it certainly has the colors that would be very fitting for one. Yeah, a lot of ambition behind this. Definitely want to see how this one turns out. Sorry, I don't have that much to say about it. Little overwhelmed by the character design, honestly. We have the Tokisaki Kurumi. I didn't know they were making a figure of her. The black Chinese dress version. Pretty cool base on this one. Definitely looks better than the Kadokawa figure we saw earlier. I love all the little birds that are like flying to her. And I guess this is like a flower that's ready to bloom. And a little lotus flower down here. Actually, the whole base is just like a pond, and she's sitting on a gigantic leaf, it looks like. I don't know if I really see Kurumi when I look at this figure's face, but the rest of the sculpts, the composition, pretty fantastic. It's a little conflicting when the character doesn't look quite right, but they're doing a great job everywhere else, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt for now. And right next to her is Lily. I have to imagine this is an OC character, another figure with a pretty involved base, not to the same degree. Looks like it places her in a bit of like a forest or some kind of outside area, right? Big flowers and leaves, maybe mushrooms behind her, a little hard to tell. I'm wondering if the butterflies are like real or they're decorative pieces for her outfit. I want to say they're real, but maybe not the ones on her shoes. The one at her chest, maybe. The ones at her waist, perhaps, but little hard to tell. Looks very pretty though. Wrapping us up for Apex Toys, we had 2 more announcements, a 1/7 scale figure for Tirpitz, a vase for the Frost Flower, as well as one more, the Yatsen Paragon of Celestial Grace. Pretty good spread of figures, if I do say so myself. Let's go to the next page. There was a lot of companies on this page, but we're going to start off with Menacos Entertainment. They only had one figure, their new Guts from Berserk scale. Now, there pretty much aren't any 1/7 scale figures of Guts, so this figure certainly has merit on that alone. But it's a little hard to be impressed with this one after you take a look at the Prime 1 Studios Guts earlier in the video. But that's not really fair, because this figure is going to be like $800 less, let's be real. So totally enough reason to buy it for that reason alone. Now I will say that while I don't know every single Guts figure out there, I can't think of another one off my head that has this kind of pose and expression. Either or really, like I just never see a Guts figure that looks like this. And I'm not opposed to it, but it definitely just makes this sculpt more unique for that alone, right? It's a very like dynamic, action-y kind of Guts, and there's certainly like enough reason to want something like that. I like the effort that they're putting into this figure. I like that he's on like a ton of bones and like broken spears and stuff like that. They certainly wanted to like go all out with this figure, at least as much as you can at the 1/7 scale. So I think overall, pretty good so far, but a little hesitant just because I'm not exactly sure how this guy's gonna look when he's done. Moving on to Wave, they had a lot of announcements actually. These 2 are finally painted. I don't think I realized last time that they were like the mothers of some of the characters from the series, and they're just like wearing the school uniforms, right? So now I definitely understand the appeal of these 2 figures. But yeah, they look good. This isn't a great photo, but it's this character from Love Live Superstar, Tang Keke. So I guess, I don't know. I have no idea why they have that in the gallery, but there you go. Yeah, Wave just had a lot of announcements. A lot of these I'm not like super interested in, so I'm just gonna like scroll through them until I get to the announcement that I do want to highlight very quickly, which is right here. Boshi the Rock Kikuri is getting a 1/7 scale figure from Wave. Never would have guessed in a million years that would happen, but I think that's pretty exciting. I was also excited to see this figure, Hozuki Kaide from Onimai. I'm sure you've seen the GIFs. I'm sure you know the character at this point. Even if you haven't seen the series, I feel like she's transcended it a little bit. And yeah, I definitely want to see what they're cooking, because it could be a good figure, let's be real. But that might be it for Wave. Actually, no, there is one more to talk about. Ilulu is getting a figure from Wave. It's very strange that a lot of companies seem to go for this form of Ilulu. Not that I'm opposed to it, but you would think they would want to just do the more basic human form, but I don't think that's what Wave's doing. I mean, this is just a screenshot from the anime, so really it could be anything, but I feel like showing us this specifically is enough reason to assume that we are getting like the dragon form of Ilulu. Kinda cool though. Hope it looks good. Hope it looks way better than the Rebos figure. And I guess that's all I gotta say about that one. Hobby Stock is another company that I want to go through rather quickly. There's only a few things I really want to highlight here, but I'm not going to skip them. I'm just going to scroll through them. This Hatsune Miku Expo 2023 VR figure, though, absolutely adorable. Love the puzzle piece dress that she's wearing. The art style for her face is just like super good. And the, you know, little hearts and stars in her twin tails, nothing like super unique, but it definitely fits this very cutesy Miku. The shoes, the socks, the little ribbons around her legs. I think it's a pretty peak Miku, if you ask me. But, you know, we continue to scroll down. We got some Strike the Blood figures. the Ayakashi triangle figures. Like, these are the same, but also different. She's got sun oil on her hands, and her expression is slightly different. Not sure if these are different figures, or you just, like, swap the parts. I think they might just be different figures, though. There is a Senran Kagura Dark Nurse Hikage, which I think is just a recolor. This one also might be a recolor, but then again, why would it be unpainted if it was just a change in paint? This might be new, the Murasaki Sexy Nurse version. Not sure, because I don't remember seeing this figure before, but pretty hot. I think I'm a little zoomed in. That might be a bit better. There is a Symphogear figure. I don't recall ever seeing a figure of her before, so that's kind of neat. It looks like there's a ton of announcements here, but I'm pretty sure I've talked about every single one of these before. Not sure about the Ikaruga Sexy Nurse figure, but I also feel like I have seen this one before. So just gonna move on from that. The Symphogear figures, I also feel like I've seen before, but in case you weren't aware, they are making some new ones for Chris, as well as Hibiki. This Miku is great. I love this Miku a lot. The shark teeth and like the drool, she just looks a bit crazy, which is a little bit up my alley. Lots of neon lights too. I think she has like a dragon tail or something. It's almost like Monster Girl Miku, which is a nice take for her. The jacket also has teeth. This is just like edgy, but it's cute edgy, so it's good edgy. And then the last company I want to talk about on this page is Seoul International. 4 figures, all fully painted. One for Ruka in a bunny suit, which looks okay. Not a big fan of that one. There is the Horoshido from Phantasy Star Online 2, which looks great, actually. I think this is probably the best of the bunch so far, even though I'm not super familiar with her. There is the Raphtalia Bikini Armor version, which actually looks pretty good too. But then we also have the Albedo Bikini Armor version. And I think this looks terrible. I do remember talking about this one last time. Just completely flat wings, terrible looking bikini, face that is just not very flattering. Don't think this is the Albedo to get, but thankfully there's like 200 other ones out there. I think we only have one more page to go through, so let's get into it. Alright, so over on this page is Ami Ami and a couple of companies that are like mostly working with them, but they do have some other figures of their own. Starting us off though is Ami Ami, and they finally painted their Shiki Ichinose and Asuka Ninomiya figures, who both look great, but especially Shiki. The longer feathers of the dress, which shows off the translucent gradient, and her wavy hair just look really nice. I don't mean to downplay Asuka, but I don't know, I think Shiki just like kinda steals the show here. They did have some other figures, unfortunately no update for Formidable. This is the same sculpt as last time, and a couple of announcements, only one being new, the Janice Fright Night Scaredy Cat figure from Azure Lane. But moving on, we jump over to Amakuni with their new Tatsumaki and Fubuki figures, which I did briefly talk about in a community post. So here's the deal, I love the fact that this is happening. The world could certainly use more high quality figures of these two. Now when it comes to Fubuki, I wish I liked her face a little bit more, maybe a better expression or something, but overall the rest of the sculpt is really nice. It has that Amakuni quality that you would expect. And as for Tatsumaki, while it's not her most like exciting figure out there, I do like it enough that I'm probably gonna be picking it up. She is using her psychokinesis abilities here. She's floating a little bit. She's the same height as Fubuki as a result. Her hair is starting to curl up a little bit. The tips are a little translucent, which is so much smarter than whatever the hell Belfine was doing with their figure. I really like the gradients that these two have on the insides of their dresses too. Specifically Tatsumaki though, it looks like seaweed to me because of the like flaps. I don't know why, I just like that. Now I will say that I do think she looks slightly too mature here, which does throw me off a little bit when I look at this figure, but it's a very minor complaint, and sometimes she does just look like this. It kind of just depends on how she's drawn that specific day, and since I like everything else about her, it's just gonna really come down to the price tag. I know Amakuni will likely charge a little bit too much for these figures, but if they're not like unreasonable, then I might pick them up, or at least Tatsumaki. Greenheart from Neptunia is a bit of a stunner if you ask me. Like any scale figure that features futuristic or mechanical detail always catches my eye, especially when it's a more committed attempt like this figure here. Also, clever placements of connection points, such as these like floating bits here and here on her side, just seem so seamless. Like I have to imagine it's in the spear and her hair, but you wouldn't think about that when just looking at this figure. Careful consideration went into planning how to pose this one from the get-go, because if they didn't, you would need to have like support rods keeping those things up. But you don't need that, because this is a well-crafted figure. And also the paint and just like the colors are phenomenal. I really like how this one looks, and it makes me kind of wish that I've played Neptunia before, so maybe I would be more excited about this. This Saki figure is apparently like 3 years old at this point. They made people wait a very long time to see the prototype finally painted, but we have it now. Looks great. I think this might be a cast-off. I'm unfamiliar with this line of figures, but it certainly looks that way based on the clothing. But yeah, next up we have a new figure from Asanagi. You can tell by the armpit and the face for sure. I would not be surprised if this is also a cast-off figure. Doesn't look as obvious to me. Definitely like the detail on her giant tail though. It looks very fluffy, very realistically sculpted. The hair shading is also phenomenal. Honestly, the clothing for what is there looks really well painted too. One day I should probably pick up some kind of Asanagi figure, but I don't know which one that should be. I think this character got a Nendoroid, right? Balban Sith from Fate's Grand Order. This is like way easier to appreciate, right? I love drill hair. Her eyes look really striking too, and they kind of look demonic because of the pupils. Her boots also killer. And I think the palette is supposed to be like mostly white and red, which is like one of my favorite color combinations. So might be something I'm looking forward to, but I'll wait for the paint job. Another Fate Grand Order character, this is Bradamant, and I think this is designed by Saitom. It certainly looks like a Xenoblade 2 blade, like you could just pull while trying to get new characters, right? Cool design. I think this is like a massive star shield. That'll probably look great when it's painted. But yeah, it's just like Twin Tail Mithra at this point to me. So I need to see it painted. A couple of announcements from Amakuni. Of course, we have Sarah, a maid who is changing and also looking at you with disgust, which feels like a trend lately. I've seen a couple of maids who look like that. We have Jirai-chan, bunny version from Arms Note. This character is making another appearance, and I feel like this is just easier to digest as a figure. We have the big sister of the swimming club, great design. We have two Blue Archives figures, one for Shimoe Koharu and one for Sunohara Kokona. And I think last up is a Dark Elf Dancer by the artist Lack. Alright, let's wrap this up. From Ami Ami and Ani Gift is a new figure of Narmaya from Granblue Fantasy. Heavily involved base with this figure, like shadowy flames almost, with butterflies scattered all throughout. The outfit makes her look like a sexy necromancer of some kind, but this pose isn't really selling me on this figure. I don't understand the intentions of it, which just makes her look less attractive as a result. She do be looking kind of soft though, but yeah, I'm about 50-50 on this figure, unfortunately. But I think I'm going to call it there. That's going to do it for our Wonfes coverage this time around. So thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Now, this is likely going to be my longest video on this channel, and I don't know how to feel about that because I've honestly been trying to slim them down a little bit. Unfortunately, this was a gigantic event, and my style of video, it's just going to make for very long-form content. So I got to rework that if I ever plan to make shorter, like easier to digest videos, but I know some of you guys like this kind of stuff anyway. So don't sweat it. It's my problem, not yours. There were a couple of figures that I did not get a chance to talk about for one reason or another, so I'm going to link this website in the description down below for you guys to check out. Either way, I guess I'm going to go edit this video. Hopefully I have it out by Saturday or Sunday at the latest. If it's later than that, then I definitely messed up. But that's all I got to say. So once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all around. Later.